Hello everyone, Jason and Leia back here again, and today we're going to be doing a spoiler review for Spider-Man No Way Home. So, right off the bat, the movie starts off with Peter Parker and MJ trying to run from everybody because this is where the last movie left off, where Mysterio revealed Parker's identity to the whole world. Um, so he's having to deal with that while being interrogated by a bunch of police officers who think that he was responsible for Mysterio's death. And Daredevil himself, Charlie Cox, comes in to settle things down. He said that while the case will blow over, it's going to be a little bit worse for him in the public eye. So he has to lay low for a little bit in Happy's apartment while trying to get into college. And he tried to submit a bunch of applications along with his friends, but none of them, because his friends were part of the last film, helping him with Mysterio and that problem. They can't get into college. So Peter, that's the reason why Peter goes for Doctor Strange's help to fix everything. And that goes wrong because Peter can't shut up, and they break this, not break the spell, but because he was able to contain it. But a few bits of pieces here and there had gone wrong. Okay, all the villains just came through during the spell when everything went wrong, and that includes the Lizard, the Sandman, Green Goblin, Doctor Octopus, and Electro. And first we see Doctor Octopus and Green Goblin on the bridge, and that leads to a very cool fight between Spider-Man and Doc Ock, in which Goblin comes in the last minute before he can do anything. And Doctor Strange um, is the one that actually found the Lizard first, and they put him in a dungeon. So they're trying to collect all these villains now into one place so that they can send them all home. And Spider-Man then meets Electro, who's still in his bluish form and is just charging up. And it's explained that he looks different here because he's in a new universe and power is different here than it was there. So it's kind of why he looks different. Sandman still looks the same. And to be sure for you all to know, it is the same actors, Rhys Ifans and Thomas Hayden Church, coming back to reprise their roles. So I find that really cool. It's voiceover work. Their physical embodiments are only just reused stuff from previous films, but it's still them. It's still them voicing the characters, so it's still them coming back. Um, then we head on to Green Goblin, who is trying to look for sanctuary from everything, trying to figure out where he is. He's in his Norman Osborn state after the Green Goblin first appeared. And there was like a cool moment where he breaks the helmet after he's being tempted by the goblin in his head. I loved it. I love the Green Goblin here. And there's only like 5 villains. Like 5 main villains, as I counted. There's no Sinister Six, unfortunately. But who is the main villain? At first I thought it was going to be Doc Ock, but it was actually the Green Goblin. Because Willem Dafoe has a lot more to do physically and mentally as an antagonist for Peter Parker here. And he is really good in the film. All the villains are really good. Nobody's phoning it in. And what I loved about this movie is how each of these villains, because they were already established beforehand, they do not need to go too much into detail about their backstory. They are able to plop them into the story, and it could all work. And here, after Peter Parker finds out from Doctor Strange that they're going to send them back eventually to die by other Spider-Men, Peter Parker, that doesn't sit right with Peter. So he gets into a little fight with Doctor Strange, and he traps him into the mirror dimension after Doctor Strange tried to get the box back from Peter, who stole it. So after that, Peter Parker then goes to Happy's apartment where he has all of his tech stuff, it brings all the villains along with him so that they could try and make a cure for each and every one of them, so that when they do eventually send them back home, they don't eventually die. He's actually trying to save these people. Yeah, they're villains, but in Peter's heart, it's still worth trying to save them. So that's the most Peter Parker thing to me. I love that about the character, how he's actually trying to help these villains instead of trying to kill them or stop them. And he treats them like regular people. I love how they portrayed this story point. And Sandman, everybody, they still felt like they were plopped out from the old movies. Nobody felt like they were out of place or their character changed all of a sudden. So it felt natural, like natural character progression from before, especially the Green Goblin and Doctor Octopus, who's basically a a much better version of himself than before. Like he is really much a jackass here, but understandable. And I love that. Alfred Molina was great as a character. But at some point during this scene, the Green Goblin starts to crawl back into Norman's mind. And he's eventually trying to tempt all the villains that this is not important. Let's just do what we want. We are gods in this world. And so Electro takes off his cure and puts in the arc reactor because he wants the power. And the Lizard escapes. He is the one that kind of predict that things will go south. Dr. Octopus at this point had turned good because Green Goblin and Peter repaired his chip in his back, so he was able to have full control of his arms again and his mind. So he escaped. So he's still good, but Green Goblin sits there fighting Spider-Man while the other guys eventually escape as well. And the fight between the Green Goblin and Peter here is brutal. While not a bloody fight, there is blood here. They still hurt each other really good. The way it was choreographed, the way it was filmed, it showcased just how ruthless Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin is, and how crazy, insane, and evil he is. Like, Dafoe here, in my opinion, was so much better than he was in 2002, and I loved him back in 2002. I wasn't born in 2002, but you know what I'm talking about. And this leads to the scene where he eventually hits Aunt May with his glider, throws the pumpkin bomb at her, and she eventually dies. After she gave Peter a great speech about with great power comes great responsibility, she eventually died there on the spot. And Peter is all sad. Everything in his life is now crumbling apart. He has lost the most important person in his life who has cared for him, loved him. He's at his lowest here. And J. Jonah Jameson is on a screen telling Peter, not telling Peter, but telling the world that everywhere Peter goes, chaos follows, which is true, but sad. Peter doesn't deserve all of this. He's sad boy now. Ned Leeds and MJ figure everything out on the TV. MJ is about to press the button on the box, but Ned accidentally knows how to do magic and accidentally brings in Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. Holy crap! Oh, when I first saw this in the theater, everybody roared. Like, everybody got excited once those characters appeared. Andrew Garfield in his full Amazing Spider-Man costume from the second film, and Tobey is just like a youth pastor as they made it as a joke in the film. They both see eye to eye with one another and start a little fight with their webs. It was such a cool moment. This moment is going to be remembered. Oh my god, I loved it. It was comedic, it was funny. The characters felt like there were natural progressions. As I said, this movie knows that and cares about these characters and their backstory. So the fact that they still resemble their past selves, I was just yes. And I saw it a second time today, and it honestly still works. It honestly still was incredible to see these two eventually meet. And once Tobey Maguire says, I've been looking for your friend. I felt like he needs my help. Andrew Garfield felt the same. And so they go on top of the school building to find him. And Peter meets him for the first time. And says, hey, I'm sorry, guys. You gotta go home. He's all sad about it. He's still grieving his Aunt May's death. He doesn't care anymore. He's ready to press the button. But Andrew and Tobey eventually tells them about their Uncle Ben, about the people they lost in their lives. Andrew was Gwen, for Tobey was Uncle Ben. And when Tom Holland mentions Aunt May told him about great power comes great responsibility, Tobey fills in that blank, and Andrew and Tobey confirmed that it was Ben that told him that, and Tom Holland, was able to understand everything now, and that Aunt May might not have died for nothing. So, all three Spider-Men at the school decide to start working on cures for each of the villains and try to help each other. And when they're able to figure that out, they go into Statue of Liberty, try to lure all the villains there, and start to try and cure each and every one of them. What I love about this is, first, we get to see these Peters be smart, use their intellectual knowledge to try and figure this stuff out, and see how they banter with one another. And their banter has chemistry. Each of these Peters work well with one another. Seeing how they joke around with one another, how they want to know more about each other, about their past and their relationships, it felt fulfilling, and it helped develop each of these characters from the previous films, where it gives them proper closure, like with Andrew and his relationship after The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and how he became bitter. Now it's back to his jokey side, and Tobey explaining how his life has started to work out a little bit more with MJ eventually. So after that, they head on to Statue of Liberty, and the villains come in. The peers start having a hard time trying to work together as a team, but eventually get into the groove with it. And at this moment, everybody clapped when all three Spider-Men are together, swinging around together. Like, you gotta understand, just like with Endgame, we never thought a moment where all these heroes come together would be possible. But it did. And because the story before worked so well, and you're able to care about these characters from before, and the storytelling here up to this point was impactful, this fan service doesn't ring hollow and felt earned. And they start curing all of these guys. Lizard turns back, Sandman turns back, Doc comes in at the last moment to save the day and saves them from Elektra, who also turns back. But the Green Goblin comes into the last second, and before Doctor Strange was able to escape the Grand Canyon and create this spell, Green Goblin explodes into the frame and just ruins everything, and the spell is about to break. And Tom Holland had this fight with the Green Goblin, and he's about to kill him, basically. He was literally just about to kill the Green Goblin. And there was like another brutal fight between the two, in which Tom Holland does eventually win this time. Like, these hand-to-hand combat fights. holy shit, they're amazing. They are intense, brutal. I loved it. So, when Tom was about to kill the Green Goblin, Toby comes in and stops him. And I love this moment where Toby stops him from stabbing him with the same glider that stabbed him in the previous film. It was like a moment where he actually was able to save the Green Norman Osborn from getting impaled. Like, that connection there to the first movie. It was beautiful. I love that, especially when Andrew Garfield saves MJ from falling like what we saw in the trailer, where we did not see Andrew, but it was Andrew that saved MJ. That harkens back to the ending of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, in which he failed to save Gwen, but now he was able to save this Peter's MJ. And you can see that this is a very heart-wrenching moment for him. So, after Toby stops him, the Green Goblin stabs Toby in the back. And you don't know if Tom is still going to kill the Green Goblin or not. But Andrew throws him the cure, Tom cures Norman, and he's back to completely being Norman Osborn. The Green Goblin is gone, giving all these villains now closure. And so Doctor Strange is still trying to figure out how to stop the spell. The only way to do that is that everybody forgot who Peter Parker is. Like, not just Spider-Man, but Peter Parker. So Doctor Strange reluctantly agrees. He does call him Steven by the end. So, yeah, and he wipes out everybody's mind. The spell works. Right before he does that, Tom says goodbye to the Peters that helped him in this situation. It's such a special moment for them and all of us audiences who saw this incredible moment. Says goodbye to MJ and Ned and promises that he'll restore their minds and make them remember him. And the dust settles. Peter swings away. Everybody goes back to their universes and it all worked out. Tom Holland tried to he tries to do what he said and try to make his friends remember him. It can't, but he eventually waits on that for another time. He gets a new apartment, makes a homemade suit, the movie ends, and it was beautiful. This was a beautiful ending. This was actually, all three movies, this was the longest origin story ever for Spider-Man, as Jeremy Jahns said. It worked so well, and in retrospect, kind of made those films, despite them being worse for me over time, better again. Like, I still enjoyed them, but I noticed problems from them over time, but this movie reassured me that the movies were actually better than I thought they were starting to become. You know what I'm trying to say. But yeah, this was a great Spider-Man movie. It showcased the flaws, the consequences of losing somebody or doing something good, and how hard it is to balance the life between Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And Peter Parker is just trying to save these villains, but so much stuff is going up against him, and it's just hard for him, and he's about to give up. But with great power comes great responsibility, and he still decides to, at the very end, to try and do good and live to what his aunt tells him to become. It was a beautiful Spider-Man story. Post-credit scene with Tom Hardy in Venom was awesome. I love the hint toward the Venom movie. The Doctor Strange trailer was cool and all, but the movie itself, I'm going to remember this theater experience for the rest of my life. Thank you guys so much for watching. People like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys next